What's good, guys? I know I typically do shoe videos, but at least like the last 10 or 15 videos I've done have been shoe videos. But my number one love by far is basketball, and that's basically the only reason I got into shoes in the first place, like from the time I was a kid. Um, Basically, all the shoes I own are related to a basketball player. I like shoes in general, but I like them specifically because they relate to basketball. And one of my main goals, and basically the only reason I'm in law school, is because I want to be a sports agent, specifically for basketball players. And for that reason, I figure every single year I always pick like the top 15, 20 players that I think will be good in the NBA. And every year I basically end up telling people, I told you, man, I knew he was going to be good. And they're like, yeah, yeah, whatever. So for the first time, I decided I'm going to record um, my top. I did my top 19 picks. I did not do it based on team need. I did not do it based on how I think they'll do next year. I did it based on how I think their NBA career will go, regardless of team need, position, etc. I just think these are my top 19 best NBA players, and then I picked some sleeper picks. And also, before I get into that, I just want to say that my last video got a decent amount of negative feedback. Um, I meant for that to be all. I shouldn't say positive because it wasn't all positive, but I tried to do it in the um, best way, in the kindest way possible, I should say. And even then, I still didn't get. I mean, I got like 34 thumbs up and 11 thumbs down at this point. But I figure politics is one of my backup plans, so I have to be able to accept some backlash at some points. But um, I definitely had my best intentions in that video. I didn't mean anything negative. I just wanted to express my opinion. But before I get into this, also rocking the Bulls snapback. This I actually got when I was a kid at a Bulls game. This is really old, and I never wore it, but I just kept it on the shelf in my house in Bloomington. And I guess when snapbacks came back, I saw it in my closet, and I was like, "Oh, that's a pretty sick hat." So now I've just been kind of rocking it since that point. But yeah, I'm rocking the Bulls shirt in honor of the draft. Huge Bulls fan, but all right, let's get into it. My number one NBA prospect is, of course, Anthony Davis. That comes as no surprise. But while many people think that he'll just be a average center or power forward in the NBA, to me, this is my personal opinion. I think he will fall somewhere between JaVale McGee and Hakeem Olajuwon. Now, I'm not proclaiming him to be the next dream because, in my opinion, the dream is the greatest center to ever play the game. But I think he could fall somewhere in the middle there. I don't think he's going to be as bad as JaVale McGee because he has a much better basketball IQ. But he's a similar type of athlete, and I think that his IQ will propel him to at least halfway between those two guys. My number two best available pro prospect is Bradley Beal. He's a little undersized for a shooting guard, but I think he compares favorably to Eric Gordon, who's had a really successful NBA career thus far before injuries. And I think the only difference is he's slightly less athletic, but he's still a very good shooter and the same type of build, about the same type of speed. So I think he could, at his highest potential, reach someone like Eric Gordon's status. Number three, you may call me crazy on this one, but I went to Illinois, had season tickets several years, and my third best prospect, pro prospect, is Myers Leonard. to me, he's a freak. You don't see centers like him in years. And I think to have Tyler Zeller, John Henson, Andre Drummond, all these guys ahead of him, which a lot of mock sites do, is, to me, in my opinion, is nuts. I think Myers Leonard compares favorably to Tyson Chandler, and I think he has the potential to not only be the same type of defender as Chandler, but also develop a better offensive game. So that's my number 3 best pro prospect. And then number 4, I've got a tie at 4 with Damian Lillard and Kendall Marshall. Now, I think Damian Lillard is the better shooter of the 2 point guards, but I think Kendall Marshall is by far the better passer. Kendall Marshall is the best passer I've seen in a significant amount of time. I would compare him somewhere between Andre Miller and Mike Conley. He's not that great of a shooter at this point in his career, but he plays a very smooth game, kind of cerebral, but he has great court vision, and you could just tell how much better the Tar Heels were when he was playing. I think you can kind of think Steve Nash minus the great three-point shooting ability and the great free throw ability. And Damian Lillard is a much better shooter, but I think he's more of a he's kind of a 2 guard, like he's kind of a combo guard. He's known more for his scoring output than he really is his passing ability, but I think he's got pretty decent court vision, and I think that I really can't think of anybody I would compare him to. He's not really Allen Iverson-esque. He's not that quick, but I'd put him somewhere. It's kind of a tough one because he's a good shooter, but he's also a decent passer. So actually, it's like Steve Nash, little quicker, better defender, minus the great passing ability. And then number 6, I've got Michael KiddGilchrist, and to me, a lot of people say that he could be the 2nd or 3rd pick, but to me, he just isn't that great. I just don't see that much potential. He plays hard, and to me, sorry, I'm looking this up right now. He reminds me of a guy that plays for the Hoosiers. I'm trying to think of his name. Hold on one second here. He reminds me a lot of. This is gonna drive me nuts. Hold on. Looking him up on the roster here. I'm doing all this without looking up the stats, anything like that. But I've seen all these guys play a lot of games, so that's where I'm getting my analysis from. But let's see here. Yeah, but then number 7, I've got Thomas Robinson. He's like no one I've really seen in a long time because he's an undersized forward, but he's extremely strong and plays hard. Okay, the guy I was thinking of is Christian Watford from Indiana. He's got, I believe that's who it is. Let's see here. Yeah, he reminds me a lot. Michael KiddGilchrist reminds me a lot of Christian Watford, who is an extremely hard-playing player, but for some reason, Christian Watford in the mock drafts for next year is a late first-rounder to a second-rounder, and I think they're, at least in my opinion, very comparable players. I think Michael KiddGilchrist will stick around in the NBA for a long time, but I just don't see him ever being an all-star. And then, as I was saying with Thomas Robinson, He doesn't really have any comparisons I can think of, but I will say if Craig Smith and DeJuan Blair can stick around in the league, to me he's just a more athletic version of those guys. He's undersized, but he plays extremely hard. He's extremely strong, and he's athletic. I thought he was, even though he did have a decent NCAA championship game, I thought Anthony Davis killed him. The Wildcats really put a lot of pressure on him. But I still think he'll be good, just not all-star level. 8, for best pro prospects, I have Terrence Jones. And I think he is by far the most underrated player on that Wildcat team. I think he's better than Marcus Teague, and I think he's right behind Michael KiddGilchrist. I thought he was a lot more important to that team than a lot of people realized, and he's very versatile. 6'9", small forward. I mean, he's athletic. He can do it all, and he's somebody I could see becoming an all-star type player. I think he's kind of a shorter version of like a Lamar Odom, kind of a all-around type of player. Number 9, I've got Perry Jones, the third. I think that he definitely needs to work on his ball handling and his shooting. But in terms of an athlete, I think he's one of the top athletes in the draft. I think that being athletic is more important than people realize, because I thought Josh Smith was going to be a bust when I saw him in high school, but his athleticism really propelled him his first few years, and he actually developed a decent jump shot. He still shoots the 3 too much, but he developed that jump shot pretty nicely and has become, at least in my fantasy league, one of the best all-around players. And 10, I've got Fab Melo. A lot of people are sleeping on him because he didn't play a lot in the season, but he is a legit 7 foot, almost 260 pounds. He's a monster. And every time he was in for Syracuse, they did well. And every time he was out, they didn't do as well, obviously, as when he was in there. But I think that he is comparable, best case, to Andrew Bynum. I think he has that type of potential. I don't know if he'll ever reach it, but I think that would be my best case scenario NBA comparison. And then 11, I've got, well, kind of a tie for 11. I've got John Henson and Tyler Zeller. I think both of them are pretty overrated, but I think that those are the best 7 foot guys remaining after the ones that I already listed. I think Tyler Zeller is one of the more overrated players in the draft. I think that Myers Leonard would destroy him, and I think that Fab Melo would destroy him. Like, yeah, he's got good fundamentals, but I think he's not as fast as people think he is, and he's not as athletic as people think he is, and he does not look that strong. And John Henson is a decent shot blocker, but again, he's not that big of a guy either. I think both those guys are fairly overrated. 13, I've got Royce White from Iowa State. I think he's a pretty athletic player, one of those all-around type of guys, and I could see him definitely morphing into a better player once he develops his fundamentals a little bit more. 14, I've got Harrison Barnes, and I think he is probably by far, well, I've got 3 guys that are really overrated, and he is one of my top 3 most overrated players. He is my 14th best pro prospect. I think he'll be pretty solid coming in as a rookie, but he will never be an all-star. I'm calling it now. He is a robot. His shot is mechanical. The way he plays is mechanical. I feel like he he doesn't let the game come to him. He just thinks about all the drills that he was doing. Like, he just looks so robotic when he plays. That's my opinion. I don't. I just think that people have hyped him up way too much, and he's the most overrated player on that UNC team. I think he'll be okay, but I would not draft him in the top 7 or 8 picks if I was an NBA GM. Number 15, I have, let's see here, Terrence Ross from Washington. He kind of is similar to like a Terrence Jones, one of those all-around type of players. Good height for shooting guard, small forward, good athlete, just a really good all-around player. 16, I've got Jeremy Lamb. I think that, to me, he's one of the better players in the draft. I think he's got top 5, 6 ability, but I met him a few times, and he's just got an attitude. And apparently, a lot of people said that he really wasn't trying at the workouts and stuff, and he just, to me, he looks like one of those lazy players. I wouldn't take a chance on him with a lottery pick, but if I had a pick outside of the top 13, I'd take him. Then number 17, I have Austin Rivers. Now, he's my second most overrated player. I think that he is a great athlete, pretty good ball handling, but he's an average shooter, and his ego is way better than his skills. I don't know who I compare him to, really. I guess a taller Ben Gordon, maybe. Like, he's got that type of mentality. I think people overrated Ben Gordon way too much when he was with the Bulls. Yes, he may have won some games, but he also single-handedly lost a bunch of games. And that's the type of impact I see Austin Rivers having. He'll hit a game winner one game and then shoot your team out of the game the next game. And personally, I don't like those type of players on my team. If somebody can corral his ability to more of a spot shooter and more of a facilitator, I'd take him in the lottery, but I just don't see that happening. He's got a pretty big ego. And then 18, my number 1 most overrated player, Andre Drummond. He reminds me favorably to Derek Favors when everybody picked Derek Favors over DeMarcus Cousins in the draft a few years back. Immediately after that occurred, I thought, no, that's a horrible decision. Now, DeMarcus Cousins has been having a few mental issues, tiffs with his coach, etc. But DeMarcus Cousins is twice the player that Derek Favors is. And, I mean, to me, that's like a fact. Derek Favors was so overhyped, and it's the same thing that's happening with Andre Drummond. He didn't do squat at UConn his freshman year, yet you're going to pick him in the top 5 of the draft. Jeremy Lamb was a better player on that team, and Andre Drummond's predicted to be a top 5 pick in almost every mock draft. I think that you could pick 6 or 7 centers that are better than him and will be better than him before him. This is purely a potential pick for every NBA GM, and I do not see him meeting the potential. He just does not look like he's going to be a great NBA player to me. And number 19, my final pick for this little mock draft thing, is Jared Sullinger. And I think that when it comes to ability, he's one of the higher-end guys. But with the back issues and the size issue, he's going to get beat up in the NBA. I say worst-case scenario is Sean May, and he isn't going to get to the best-case scenario, but he's similar to a Kevin Love type that's about the same size, good rebounder, plays hard, and he's got a decent three-point shot. So that would be best case scenario, but that's not going to happen. But he plays hard, and I think he'll be a decent NBA player if his back holds up. And then I figured I'd list a few sleepers. My sleepers are Draymond Green, Jeffrey Taylor, Kim English, Darius Miller, and Miles Plumlee. I think Mason Plumlee's better than Miles, but I think Miles Plumlee will still be a decent NBA player. Kim English played for Mizzou, and he destroyed Illinois the past 3-4 years, and he's a great shooter, and I think he's going to be good. People are sleeping on him. Jeffrey Taylor, great athlete, great all-around player, and Draymond Green, yes, he's slow, yes, he's vertically challenged, but he is a great post passer, above average shooter, a above average rebounder, and a below average defender. But he has a off the charts basketball IQ, and I think that he is also being slept on. I think he can be just as good as DeJuan Blair, if not better. And that is my picks. I know this went a little long, but I want to have proof in the coming years when I say that I told you that guy would be good. Here's my video evidence. I'm hoping my next video will be a shoe-related video. I'm hoping it's going to be those Barkleys, but we'll see within the next week. Thanks. If you didn't like this video, sorry, but basketball is my first love. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the analysis. And sorry for a couple spots where I got a little sidetracked and paused a little bit looking for information on the internet. But appreciate everything, guys. Peace.